Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar in the Employer Perspective webinar series. And I welcome you from Halifax, Nova Scotia. The series Employer Perspectives is brought to you by the Immigrant Employment Councils of Canada and a New Canadians TV network. And today's webinar is titled The Power of Intentional Networking to Access Talent, Utilizing Connector Programs to Fill Labor Gaps. As you know, in today's tightening labor market, accessing skilled talent is a key factor in helping businesses thrive. And the award-winning Connector Program at the Halifax Partnership is helping employers address that challenge and meet new talent, while also helping newcomers, immigrants, quickly build their professional networks in Canada. This webinar is brought to you in collaboration with the National Connector Program at the Halifax Partnership, the award-winning program. And if you have questions during the session about the program and about the other topic and the other issues discussed, please feel free to type in the Q&A if you're joining on Zoom, or if you're watching on YouTube, type in the chat box. My name is Gerard Kalajian, and I'm delighted to welcome today's moderator, Alida Campbell from the National Connector Program. Alida is a manager at the National Connector Program, and in that role, Alida supports connector communities across Canada and also internationally, ensuring they have the tools to run a successful program. Her focus is always on helping people access resources and supports so they can thrive wherever they choose to call home. Welcome, Alida.
Thanks, Gerard, so much for that introduction. So, hi, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's webinar. As Gerard said, the power of intentional networking to access talent, utilizing connector programs to fill labor gaps. So today, with my three panelists, we'll be discussing the labor market gaps and how networking and talent retention programs can help businesses fill them. One of the solutions we'll talk about is Halifax Partnership's award-winning Connector Program, which is currently active in 32 communities across Canada with support from the National Connector Program. So if you're interested in becoming involved or you want to know more after today's webinar, you can find us on LinkedIn at National Connector Program or Twitter at Connector Program. And I'll put my contact in the chat as well so that you can ask me any questions afterward. So to get started, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our three panelists. Mayan Harel heads Engineering's Aerospace and Defense Program, following more than 7 years of experience as an R&D mechanical engineer, a tech lead, and project manager. He's worked across various industries and fields with experience at companies such as Hewlett-Packard, RoboStream, RoboTeam, and Zivav Technologies. Mike Johnson is the founder and CEO of RedSpace, a software engineering company based in Bedford, Nova Scotia. RedSpace is in growth mode in a highly competitive IT industry, attracting talent from across Canada and increasingly around the world. They've been recognized for their leadership in diversity, youth employment, export success, and innovation. RedSpace was named the 2021 Halifax Business of the Year. And Vinita Savani is the regional to Canada with RBC. Vinita is responsible for ensuring best-in-class performance and delivery of RBC's advice, products, and services to more than 800,000 personal and business clients within Atlantic Canada. Vinita is an experienced strategist and leader with over 25 years of experience in the financial services industry. She's known for her analytical and creative growth mindset, finding innovative solutions to complex issues, and delivering solid financial performance. She says that her secret to success lies in developing and empowering her teams and focusing more. So as Gerard said, during today's webinar, please feel free to ask questions at any time in the Q&A box. We won't have a set time for questions. So anytime you have a question, just pop that in the box and we'll answer as many of them as possible throughout the hour-long webinar. So to begin, I will ask Mayan to tell us how you and your company have been involved with the Connector program and what's been your experience thus far.
Thanks, Alida. So newcomer myself, I moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia back in 2018. And shortly after starting work for Ingenuity as a tech lead, I joined the Connector program. I heard about it after I moved here, and I was kind of surprised because these things doesn't exist back home. Joined as a Connector program, and the feedback that I got is that they don't have enough engineers in the pool for connectors. So I was more than happy to join the team, sometimes meeting with people out of my field, so engineers, but out of different fields. And obviously, the Connector program promotes networking and is there to kind of connect people who are new to the industry or new to the country with people who are experienced in their fields. And I was a newcomer myself, so helping to grow their network was obviously a challenge for me as well. But I took that opportunity to learn a lot about challenges of newcomers like myself moving here into a new country, but also perhaps talk and discuss about difficulties with job search strategies and just growing their own network. Obviously, over the last 4 years that I've been with the Connector program, I've gained my own network and was able to help more and more people in that sense. But I really appreciate what Halifax Partnership does, and I've met probably about a dozen connectees in that program over the years. Obviously, COVID was a little bit difficult. I'm obviously I'm a big fan of in-person meetings, and that kind of went away. But I've met with newcomers from different countries, newcomers from other provinces, and it was very nice to kind of get insights on the difficulties growing people's network here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Not here, but over there in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm currently traveling for work. It's been a great experience. I've learned a lot, and I think I contributed a lot. A few of the people who I've met were interviewed at the company I was working for. A lot of people found work after a few sessions that we had together. So overall, it's very good for both the connectors and connectees.
Wonderful, thanks, Mayan. I appreciate that answer. You a little bit of experience with.
I think your connection is a little bit unstable. We kind of missed that last sentence, I think.
Can you tell us about your experience with the Connector program and
Alida, you're still cutting out, so maybe if it was for me, maybe I'll just jump in and then we can move around with the rest of the panelists. But a little bit of history for us at RBC. We began participating in the program over 10 years ago, and in 2017, RBC became the presenting sponsor. So we have an extensive history. Today, if we look at the number of active RBC connectors that we have about 50 that are involved in the program at any given time. And, I think mine highlighted so many great elements of value that come out of it. And if I was to sort of say that very succinctly, the feedback from our employees has been fantastic. And they would say that what they really walk away with is a great experience, and a great experience of a two-way exchange of value. They see it as an opportunity to share, but to also to learn. So all in all, it's been very positive for us at RBC.
Thanks, Benita. Can you hear me now? Excellent. Mike, can you let us know about your experience with the Connector program and how it's benefited your employees or your business itself?
Yeah, sure. As a personal statement, I've been a connector myself for some years and have traditionally probably met people of an entrepreneurial background, newly arrived, looking to sort of get involved in the sort of business leadership and networking sector. So it's been rewarding personally to me to hear those inspiring stories, to understand what people bring, the reasons that they chose to come and live in a place like Nova Scotia. So I'm from here. I've built my business here, and we sometimes forget what we have here, and until someone has chosen to bring their young family from another part of the world. So I've personally found it very rewarding to be part of some of those conversations. Over time, we've met and hired a number of people who have heard about Red Space through other connectors in the broader community who maybe have worked here or maybe just know of us, and have sort of graciously made those introductions. And over time, as we've grown, we have an increasing number of our staff who themselves are connectors, people who, there's one example of a chap who arrived and was sort of a recipient of some introductions in networking, eventually found his way here and has chosen to sort of give back in a meaningful way. So there are a number of those kind of stories that are emerging as the program matures. We're seeing kind of graduates, if you will, come through and give back and feed that process. So it's been, by the numbers, useful as a way to meet people and introduce people into the community and give them reasons to stay here in Halifax, part of the reason that the city is now thriving. But it's also just been very personally rewarding to be reminded again of kind of what makes this place special as seen through someone else's lens.
Great, thanks, Mike. I think the Connector program, one of the great aspects of it is that everyone can gain something different. Whatever they're looking for to gain from the Connector program is there for them. It's not just about getting a job for connectees or meeting new people. It's about having that sense of community and being able to engage in your community and have an impact directly where you live or want to live. So broadening our idea from the Connector program and going to networking in general. Mike, can you tell me how networking has helped your company meet and attract new talent to Bedford and to Red Space?
Sure. Yeah, we, as was mentioned in the intro, we're in the IT sector. We're about 300 employees. We do fairly complex software engineering for sort of large enterprise scale problems. There is a global shortage of IT talent. I suppose at this point, almost every industry is feeling a global shortage of talent for some reason. But IT certainly, has experienced that, and it's been in fast forward over the last couple of years for sure. We're trying to find wonderful people with subject matter expertise that sort of want to be part of the industry. I don't think any of us make a major life decision. Heck, we don't even make a minor life decision without asking our friends, right? Anything you buy, any trip you go on, if you're going to go on a date, I mean, any sort of major decision you make, you ask friends, you ask family, you read the reviews, especially the 1-star reviews and how they were handled. Like that we are social beings. So we as a service business thrive by building trust with our customers. Similarly, we thrive by building trust with our team and our employees and creating a place where we can articulate our values and find people who align with them. And networking, personal introductions are the best way to do that. It's not a high volume way to meet talent, but the people that we do meet understand what we're about, we understand what they're about, and it's been a sort of powerful way to kind of build our culture in a meaningful way. So we've embraced and really doubled down on things like employee referrals and bonuses and things like that to encourage people to tell our story to their friends and family and networks, which only accelerates the more people we meet, the more diverse backgrounds we hire. It sort of continues to accelerate. So it's been highly valuable, not just from sort of newly arrived Canadians, but people of a variety of backgrounds that are interested in working in this sector. I mean, we're part of a number of youth engagement groups and programs like Queer Tech and things that just help find people who are interested in the subject matter expertise, who come from a variety of backgrounds. And it's been a wonderful way to kind of find people who align with the values of the organization.
Fantastic. That's a great, experience and wonderful example. Mayan, do you have anything to add on how networking has helped both you and your company?
I mean, generally, so Ingenuity is an engineering consultant in Halifax. So we have about 50-some employees and about a similar number of projects on the go. So networking just helps us do, what we do. It's networking. It helps us with suppliers, with vendors, with clients, with special matter experts. Anytime we need a special snowflake or a special skill set for a certain project. So it's in direct connection with our business development and with our day to day, basically. So without networking, we wouldn't be alive. And just the fact that COVID was a big hit because we are used to doing things in person and bringing people into the business and walking them around and create those personal relationships through events and conferences. So we had to make a shift basically to move everything to online only. But yeah, networking is our bread and butter, and we do that every day.
Building on that comment, Mike, Mayan, how was networking virtually for you and your organization? Was that an easy shift, or is it something that you're still working on even today?
It was very difficult for the first few months, especially for our marketing. And for some of our biz devs who were used to just getting on a plane and going into a conference and bringing people here. So anytime someone visited Halifax, you would show them around and show them what we do. And it's a lot easier to lay your eyes on some of the project that we do than to explain it over Zoom or over other video conferences. So it was definitely an adjustment. I think we were all taking it in for a few months. We made some great improvement there, but we were very happy to be back to jumping on planes and attending conferences in person. So it's a mix of both these days. We do obviously some work from home, and some of our marketing is still online, but we're happy to be back.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Vinita, as a person that covers a large area, how is networking important for you and what you do, and to create that sense of community for RBC across Atlantic Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mayan and Mike hit on so many really critical points. And when we think about networking and the value of building those relationships, that's really what it comes down to. We've got across our different lines of businesses here in Atlantic Canada for RBC, we've got over 2,000 employees. And so when we think about networking, not only the value of doing that internally, but also externally. And the internal part comes from really making sure that people have a chance to connect in different ways, whether it's on certain areas that they're interested or that they have likes for, or groups that they identify with. We play a really important role in facilitating that, but also externally looking at building those relationships with clients and community. I think mine hit on some really interesting points around what that felt like during COVID. And I have to say, I think that internally, we learned to leverage tools in a very different way. We onboarded a lot of new staff over the last 2 years. And so building that muscle around networking, leveraging the tools that we have, like Zoom, and we use WebEx internally, those elements became really important. I think now that we're back face to face, the exciting part is that you get to build a depth of relationship through networking that looks and feels a little bit differently than what you can do virtually. So absolutely, like others on the line, networking is really, really critical, both internally and externally for us.
Great. Now, Mike touched on this a little bit earlier about bringing in more diversity and inclusiveness to the business. But Vinita, why are talent retention programs and talent attraction programs like the Connector Program important for your business, but also the labor market as a whole?
Yeah, Alita, it's a really great question. And I do appreciate, I'm thinking about, as you say it out loud, how you've worded it, because I have a couple of perspectives around attraction and retention of immigrants based on my lived experience. And so I'm going to make a couple of comments and then kind of bring us back to the punchline. But if I start first with the fact that we often only speak of the benefits that immigration brings to the region. And so we often talk about how newcomers fuel our economy, create new businesses and jobs, fill labor gaps, and add to the diversity and culture in our communities. And all of this is true and very exceptionally important, but I don't think it stops there. Some of the things that I think about being a newcomer into to Halifax and Atlantic Canada is that we also need to remember the value that our region brings to immigrants and newcomers. Most newcomers leave their home countries or their home province or their home city in search of either a different or a better life. And certainly that was the case for my family. And I think it's a case for many newcomers. Coming to Canada in particular brings stability, safety, security, and it opens up new opportunities. And that's what really takes me kind of to my second point, which is around integration. As immigration expands in our region and cultural communities grow, it's really easy for newcomers to integrate where they feel most comfortable. And often that's within cultural groups, which is completely understandable. But I think it shouldn't be exclusive of experiencing and connecting with the broader community. I think if we fail to integrate into the broader community, we we limit ourselves and we present risks to ourselves by sort of operating in a bubble. Yet on the other hand, when you think about it, overskewing to the broader community and not making those connections with one's own groups, whether it's cultural or something else, or whether it's professional, it can also lead to a sense of belonging. And so if this happens, newcomers will often leave and go to a city or a region where they can find both the comfort of their own community, whether that's again defined by culture, profession, whatever that might be. And you kind of miss out on those more expansive, you search for those more expansive opportunities. And there's a huge risk there. So from my perspective, I think it all comes down to a bit of a balance between the two. I think that's why initiatives like the Connector Program is so important. It provides newcomers with a unique opportunity to meet with people that are both within and outside of their own cultural groups in different industries and different sectors. But it also helps support businesses like ours and the labor market in general. When we keep more newcomers and young professionals in our region, we are able to build a more diverse talent pool with different perspectives, which is really important for all of us.
Awesome, thank you. That's really important that it's always a two-way street. There's always more people benefiting from every action that we do. Mike, I'm going to pass it over to you for the diversity in the labor market. Why is that important for the area as a whole?
Yeah, look, I'd amplify one of Anita's points. I think in most walks of life, people go somewhere new for a thing. Maybe it's to get a degree, maybe it's to chase a salary or job title, or to leave an unsafe home country. Or there's a spark of motivation to pick up and make a major change. But I think people stay for the relationships. That's ultimately what sort of builds the threads and builds the ties that keep people together. If you look at kind of the retention word in the question that you asked, Alita, from the standpoint of industry, we're not to sort of buzzword bingo it, but we are all still trying to figure out the whole Great Resignation, Great Reset, all of the kind of change in the workforce that's happened over the last couple of years. We're finding the skills, but there's when people don't stay and really get rooted, the organization overall suffers in some ways. There's an organizational memory that's lost. The values go out the door. The kind of not just what we do, but how we do it. The welcoming mentorship, for the new graduate who gets to sit with someone who's practiced their craft for a long time. So organizationally, retention is important, but I think similarly our communities benefit from that as well. People who, as Vanita said, get integrated, find a way to bring their special lived experience into the fabric, and it takes a while to grow those roots, but they really make for a richer place. Halifax it's a booming city out east. We're one, if not the fastest growing mid-sized cities in the country at this point. And I think it's important that we all work together to make sure it's not just a bigger city, but a healthy, better city for everyone. And that means being a place where people feel comfortable integrating and raising their families. And it's because that sort of short-term stop along the path really just doesn't bring the value to our companies or our communities. So I think there's something powerful to building those relationships, because that's really the glue that holds it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the benefits of the Connector Program for the community itself, is it allows newcomers and new graduates and international graduates to start building those roots and actually develop those relationships, instead of just get a job that with a Great Resignation you can just leave and go to another one.
Right.
You get
right.
more
and increasingly in our industry where you can work remotely for anyone, right? I mean, we have an office space for 300 people, and we see maybe 10% of them, coming to the office anymore. It's an industry, certainly in IT, where people, where they choose to work versus where they choose to live aren't always the same thing anymore. So giving people a reason not just to come for a job, but to come and be part of a place in a community, I think is really increasingly important, as even just what it means to go to an office and work in a downtown core just completely changed over the last couple of years. So I think we have an opportunity really to embrace, these kind of networking and retention programs to perhaps build our community first, not just our workforces.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a question in the Q&A, and I will say it's just a quick answer from me. How can we get in touch with a connector is the question. And if you want to go on to connectorprogram.ca, you will find which areas and which cities have connector programs, and they will have that connector programs coordinator. So you can just email that coordinator and get in touch with a connector if you are eligible for the program. So that's the answer to that question. And then Mayan, I'm going to shoot the next question over to you. Unless you have a comment on the last question, you're more than welcome to jump in there.
I mean, the only thing I would add is that as a newcomer myself, and learning from experience and having other newcomer friends, networking is very important to feel you belong, basically. So I know a lot of people that are, work from home or don't work at all, but if you don't blend in, if you don't create connections and networks and relationships, you don't feel like you belong. And then the next job offer comes in, or the next opportunity comes in, or you miss your family back home, and you don't think twice, and then you just move again. So networking definitely helped to keep people here, keep people happy, and grow our communities. So.
Yeah, it's super important. That sense of belonging is something that's not tangible, right? But it's very important to just your fulfillment, not just for employment, but also just fulfillment in wherever you live. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
So next question, Mayan. Why should employers be looking to diversify their talent pool?
So it's quite an easy question for me because, again, we do so many things and are involved with so many projects and so many types of work that we largely benefit from other people's experience, skill set, and know-how. So the more talent that we bring from abroad, the more broad of a spectrum our talent pool is, basically. And one of the things that we're proud of, being an engineering consulting group and not just focused on a single product or a single industry, is that we can actually take a solution from one field and implement it on another. And that is strictly related to the talent pool that we have. So we have engineering that did maritime engineering at a country far away from here, and then he has an idea that might be applicable for medtech for a local project. So having that kind of diversified skill set and know-how is a great benefit to the company and how we do things. It helps with innovation. It helps with idea generation. Different cultures, different places, different types of education have a different mindset to it and different way of coming up with solutions, with concepts, with things. So it definitely helps us find better solutions quickly and more effectively. And obviously it makes the workplace a lot of fun too. Different people, different cultures, different ages are a good mix, and keeps it interesting, keeps it just a good place to work at. So we hugely benefit from diversity, no doubt.
Great. Benita, do you want to jump into that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think mine captured it so well. And when I think about diversity, I always frame it as diversity of thought. And I do believe that it makes companies stronger. Diversity of thought, from my perspective, it's created from the elements that we most commonly think about when we hear the term, diversity. It's around culture, it's around lived experiences, career background, education, language, ethnicity, age, gender. Like, it's all of that mixture of things that enables people to bring a different perspective and a different mindset to the table, which is really valuable, across any organization. And the fact that we have such a variety of roles, we have roles where we have really deep subject matter expertise. We have roles that are much more generalist. So being able to staff it with that diversity of thought really, really does help us. I believe that when we have that diversity of thought at the table, we're better equipped to develop ideas and people. And it also just enables us to foster innovation. And ultimately, I think it drives economic prosperity. So all very, very important, not just from an organizational perspective, but from the broader economic perspective as well.
Great.
I wanted to jump and say that diversity in language is also very important. I know that about a few months ago, when we were trying to hire Ukrainians over and trying to find spots and things for them to do, and we were lucky enough to have a Russian-speaking employee already to be able to translate over. So that helped us greatly. So yeah, languages is also very important. Helps us translate data sheets in foreign languages and helps us communicate with clients abroad. So definitely, that's a big one.
Absolutely. Mike, anything else to add on that question?
Yeah, look, I 100% agree with both my colleagues' comments. I mean, we too are problem solvers. We're software engineers. We're custom developers. We're expanding into various parts of Europe. So the language comment that Mayan just made absolutely rings true for us. A couple of thoughts really borrowed from others. I recently rediscovered a Harvard Business Review article from it's probably 9 or 10 years ago. Like by the numbers, I think the study at the time said that things like if you've got a member of a team who has some traits in common, meaningful personal traits in common with your end user or your customer, that team far better builds a connection and understands that person. That a team with a member, I think one of the stats was something like if you have a team member who shares ethnicity with one of your customers, you're something like 150% more likely to actually understand them and build a meaningful business relationship with them. I mean, the stats, by the numbers, bear out that diversity is good business. But to borrow another quote from the circus industry, P.T. Barnum said that nobody ever made a difference by being like everyone else. And if you're trying to differentiate yourselves in a global marketplace, which an increasing number of businesses in Canada and certainly Atlantic Canada are doing, being able to stand out and find creative ways to apply the special thing that you do, in our case, software development in a certain area, in other types of industries, as Mayan said, in other types of customers, in other types of business models, in a way that presents also a welcoming face to the kind of talent we need to really fulfill on that promise. And yeah, diversity just makes sense, not just by the numbers, but by the heart as well.
Great. Thanks everyone for that, those insights. It's really important. So we know that it's important. We know it's important to have diversity within our communities, on our staff, within our attraction, retention, engagement, policies, procedures, actions, and thoughts. But we also know that can be very difficult, and there are certainly roadblocks, barriers, and challenges associated with that diversity or bringing diversity in. So Mike, I'll start with you. How does your business work to welcome and then retain newcomer talent when you are able to bring them to Halifax or to onboard them?
Yeah, we're all of these areas are accelerating, I guess, in what I hope are positive ways. A few years ago, we had a much more Canadian only, Atlantic Canadian only workforce. We lived in a world where people came to the office every day, so most of the people were here, and the ability to kind of increase our diversity, in every meaningful way that you'd measure that, was sort of rate limited by the region. And the last couple of years, that has completely changed. Our ability to now find like-minded professionals who are masters of their craft in our field wherever they sit has really kind of opened up the world's sort of our playground in terms of kind of making these connections and finding people. So we've hard over embraced improving our policies. Number one, sort of fair, open, inclusive hiring practices. Of course, that's sort of table stakes. We tend to recruit people internationally who generally still want to be in Canada. We sort of have a bias toward sponsoring people with sort of Canadian immigrant intent and sponsor that immigration process for those new hires and their families. Relocation assistance. We've stood up increasing focus on things like DE&I committees to really look at our onboarding process right from the very beginning, right from when we first get a resume from someone to help them understand what it would be like to work here, to work for Red Space, what that transition process might look like. We try to treat our customers as human beings and build trust with them. So why wouldn't we do that with the people that we need to fulfill on the great work with those customers? So trying to find ways to understand the scary things that people are dealing with and address them together and solve those. We don't have everything figured out, but having meaningful programs and ways to engage in conversations and and still be intimate enough to deal with the one-off situations that a family with a child with a certain background, or the real things that get in the way of integrating into our company and our culture. To try to build targeted programs that address those, rather than kind of blanket policies that don't really serve anyone. I think we'd rather serve the individuals and sort of help people make real connections and then kind of build out from there.
Great. And how has that, have your policies and actions changed via or during or post COVID, now that people aren't necessarily getting in the same room anymore or coming to work? Are they similar, or are they completely different as well?
In a couple of ways. So we've always been I would say a remote business. The bulk of our clients are outside of Canada, outside of the region, but we've had to learn to become a remote culture as well as a remote business. I don't know exactly where we were sort of 2-3 years ago, but I would argue we only had a small handful of people outside of Atlantic Canada at all. At this point, we have, probably 15-20% of our staff in other parts of Canada. We have people working from, I think at this point, 11 or 12 other countries other than Canada, in a way that just didn't exist sort of 2 to 4 years ago. So we're trying to, number one, just embrace attracting and finding people and telling our story and building relationships and understanding immigration processes and things. But then, trying to quickly accelerate our policies to be supportive of that, to kind of make sure that our values are clearly articulated in our sort of formal policies as we grow, so that people get a good, consistent experience and a fair one.
Great, thank you. Vanita, what about RBC across Atlantic Canada? How do you work to welcome and retain newcomer talent?
Yeah, I mean, the spirit of how we look at it is very similar to what Mike outlined, and I'll take us back to some of the comments that we all made earlier, that when we think about the welcome and the retention, it really is about creating that sense of belonging and helping the employees or the prospective employees making sure that connection happens very, very early on in. And so when we think about both attraction and retention, there's a series of programs, and they really do, to some extent, they would differ by the geography, they would differ by the type of role, et cetera. But we definitely have a number of programs that are global or national in scope. One area that's really important for us right across all of our businesses globally, and we have a real focus on in Atlantic Canada, is our employee resource groups. And so when we think about our employees across Canada, we have about 25,000 employees that participate in these employee resource groups. And the intent is to bring together employees who share a common identity or a common set of characteristics or set of interest. And the idea is to really create that culture of inclusion that enables us to enhance the employee engagement, and then also further support the connections into the organization vision and values. So that's a bit more of a formal structure, but the intent is to provide that type of an environment so that people can start to make those connections and feel that sense of belonging. We have Mosaic is the name of one of our employee resource groups, and it's one of 7 employee resource groups. The mission is really to foster an inclusive culture for employees that are visible minorities, non-visible minorities, and newcomers. However, that being said, we're not exclusive. Any one of those employee resource groups are really open to anyone, so that you have the benefit of learning, from your colleagues, no matter where they work or what their background is, and really speaks to that sort of element of diversity of thought. The last thing I'll say is that that gives you a sense of a little bit about some of the structured, but the opportunities that we have today, grassroots, each and every day, and the way that we interact, that is strongly encouraged in terms of how we build culture across our teams. We spend a lot of time celebrating different cultures, celebrating different events, and having different initiatives that speak to that cultural element or that diversity element, especially when it comes to engaging with some of our newcomer talent. So that gives you a little window into some of the things that we think about and the programs and initiatives that we have underway.
Great, thank you. That sounds great. Mayan, any policies, procedures, activities for Ingenuity to welcome and retain newcomers?
So generally, being a smaller size company, the formalities are not really there. We don't have policies for that other than proper onboarding for all of our employees. But being a small, agile, friendly company filled with fun people, I think it's just making someone feel welcomed and feel like you belong is a little bit easier for us, even though we are quite tight at the hip and very quirky, to be honest. But generally, finding the right talent, making him feel like he's coming to a family and a home rather to a big corporate is something that definitely helps us being a 50 employee size company. Generally, everyone is equal and we're trying to help out any time in any way we can. But being a small size company, we have a limit to the policies, procedures, HR, and all that kind of stuff that we can accommodate. So has its pros and cons for sure.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, it's important to have those perspectives as well, from small to medium to quite large. I'll just remind everyone that you can also still ask questions in the Q&A box. So that's at the bottom of your screen. And then I will ask, I guess, a general question, but we have had certainly people mention things that they have benefited from the Connector program, but in general, as a business, how have you, Vanita, I'll start with you, benefited from the Connector program? So not your employees and farmers as it were, or the community, but how has your business itself benefited from engaging in the Connector program?
That's, Alita, great question, and you're right. I think we've touched on it through the session, but I am going to take it back to the feedback that we get from our connectors, because I think that actually helps articulate how that value is created for us as a business as a whole. What they tell us is that they feel the benefit as much from the experiences that the connectees do, which is really great, because we're always looking for ways to help our employees develop personally and professionally, and to expand their own networks. I think we're in an interesting space and time when we think about the journey over the last couple of years and where talent and employee expectations have gone. That ask to be more engaged, to provide more of that support, to be more invested in people personally and professionally is really expanded in what we've seen internally. So I think this is a great way for us to lean into that. But the program, when we look at it from a business perspective, also offers a chance for the individuals that are involved to develop empathy and cross-cultural awareness, and to also further enhance their interpersonal communication skills. So I think that there's a whole business element there. And then at the end of the day, true to what the purpose of the program is, it provides an opportunity for employees and more broadly the business to extend their network. Once somebody is introduced to a newcomer, that expands the connectors network, and they have an opportunity to then extend that value that they've created and what they've shared and learned. So I think there's multiple benefits. I think finally, when you think from when I think from a business perspective, coming a little bit back to sort of that employee engagement, what we learned through the last couple of years is when people can be out and about, when they couldn't network, when they couldn't be immersed into the community, there was a piece of employee engagement that was missing. They felt disconnected. And so when I think about how, what that sort of equity that we get as humans and as individuals, there's a whole feel-good element that comes with the program. Having a chance to pay it forward and helping someone else reach their full potential, I think gives us all a sense of pride. And that satisfaction is sort of immeasurable and creates a sense of intangible business value.
I couldn't have asked for a better example of what the Connector program does. I think I'm probably going to just take that snippet and post it on our website and say, this is what the Connector program is. I think you're exactly right. I think that there are all of those intangibles, and I think it's really important for the connectors and then, their work in the business as a whole. I think that it seems like it's something that would be very separate from the business itself, but you've really articulated that it really does have a massive impact on their work, on the business itself, and I appreciate you hitting on all of those really important points. Mike, would you like to make any further comments on the Connector program and how it benefits your business.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, Vanita, extremely well done. I'd maybe add a couple other thoughts kind of around the edges. So the ability to kind of speak with someone when they're still getting settled, when they're still exploring, that there's an open intimacy to the conversation. Oftentimes when we're, so you can follow my logic, when we're in a job interview situation, there's a formality and a rigor to the conversation. So if you ask someone, what is it you're looking for in a job, but you're across a conversation like this in a formal interview, you get a very polished answer, right? So the ability to sit down over a coffee with someone who's just wants to make a connection, we have a chance to ask people from different places, from different industries, from different walks of life, what it is they're looking for in a job. I really enjoy, for example, meeting new students, new international students here at local universities, and asking them, what does a career look like to you now? Because we as employers don't usually get a meaningful answer to questions like that. How can we build a company that is actually aligned with what you want for a career, for your family, coming from somewhere else? It's been instructive for us to help us build a better company. It's a chance for us to, as Vanita said, I'll sort of amplify her point that we're always looking for ways, particularly with rising leaders, to give them an opportunity to make an impact, to be mentors, to practice that craft, to give back in some way, either inside the company or outside, be it with a youth program or a connector program like this. It's a chance to sort of flex those muscles and polish those skills and feel valued in making that contribution. I think it's important that people see that we as employers care about this kind of stuff. So we found kind of good value in that. And as we've kind of grown, as I mentioned in one of the earlier kind of sections, that we've had people kind of meet us through the program, join, and then serve back as connectors themselves. It's helped present a different face, different ambassadors of the brand, different people who can answer more lived personal experience of what it's like to work in this sector, to work at Red Space, to work and live in Nova Scotia, to people who have similar backgrounds in ways that I can't answer in that meaningful way. I present the way I do. I'm from this place. I founded the company. I have my stories to tell. But it's been so rewarding as we've grown the business to have other people tell our story through their own language, if you will. And I think it's been healthy for us as a business in so many ways.
Great, thanks, Mike. I think I'm going to amplify the point that it's important for people to recognize with the Connector program that it's not only the connectees that benefit. Connectors have a lot of things to learn. They have a lot of things to see and experience that maybe they'd never thought of before, or they'd never considered. And that's what that coffee meeting or that quick intake meeting allows them to do is experience somebody from a different culture. Oh, that education means something, or this school, or this experience, or these skills that otherwise they wouldn't have known how valuable those are, or how important those are. So yeah, it's definitely a two-way street of learning from those meetings. Connectee, of course, is learning all about the industry, and the connector is learning all about someone from another place and what they bring to the table. Perfect, thank you. Mayan, any ideas on how your business benefits from the Connector program?
I mean, my colleagues raised a lot of good points. Generally, it's also a very solid talent pool. I know that anytime we're looking for someone new, and we've been growing quite rapidly, probably tripled our workforce over the last 3 years. Anytime there's a need for someone, Nathan Laird, who's the Halifax Partnership Connectors Program program manager, is probably the first or second on the list. And I typically reach out, and he has a great pool of talent there. But other than that, it's obviously as much as it is a networking exercise for me, it's also a networking exercise for the company. So a lot of people that I've met over the years, have gone places and started work for their own start working somewhere else. And, you know, they know the Ingenuity brand, they know the Ingenuity name, and there's a lot in those meetings that I pass along to them that they can pass along to others. So it's a great networking exercise for the company as well, not just for myself. And yeah, that's the two big things where the company can benefit, currently benefits from the Connected program.
Great, thank you so much. All right, I'm going to do a last final call for questions from the audience. And if there are none, that was all of my questions for my lovely panelists. I want to really thank you thank you to today's panelists for sharing your experiences and your insights on the power of the Connector program, but also just intentional networking in general to attract and retain youth talent, immigrant talent, and all sorts of talent from all sorts of places. So thanks everyone to those that joined today's webinar. And
thank you, Alida. Thanks for setting this up, and thanks everyone. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
I also want to say that if you're interested in learning more about the Connector program and how it can benefit your community or your company, again, you can find us on LinkedIn or on Twitter, or you can email me with my email that I put in the chat. So again, thanks everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your beautiful Wednesday. And Gerard, over to you.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you for the panelists about this very kind of informative discussion about the Connector program and about its role and the role of networking as well in accessing talent, both from the employer side and also from the immigrant side, in how it builds, it helps them build their professional networks in Canada. So this webinar today was part of the Employer Perspective webinar series that's brought to you by the Immigrant Employment Councils of Canada and New Canadians TV Network. So we're regularly having other sessions with the employment councils across Canada. So keep an eye on our programming that you can access on Omni Television, on our website, newcanadians.tv, as well as our YouTube channel, and stay connected so that you are aware of the upcoming sessions. And you can stay connected through our social channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Telegram messaging app, as well as our monthly and weekly newsletters. Thank you again to everyone. And last reminder that everyone who registered and attended this webinar will get a recording of today's session. So keep an eye on your inbox and feel free to share it with your network so that they also know about the Connector program and they also benefit, their businesses also thrive through these programs. And the email will also include the URL links to the Connector program and to the employment councils in Canada, so that you can get in touch directly with Alida or the other councils to benefit from these resources and programs. So thank you everyone once again, and look forward to see you in the upcoming webinars.